you very much, Mr. MC. It's a great honor for me to be asked to review this book. Great honor because, as Kunle Famarillo I just said, Angela and I grew up together from our pre-teens till we become this old. So when I was asked, I thought, well, that's a really wonderful honor, and I feel really, really gratified to be asked to do this. Let me start by acknowledging, apparently in absentia for the time being, Dr. Segun Akinlolu, popularly known as a Beautiful Nubia, for recognizing Anjola's life as one that is very, very much worth documenting. And he started this by doing a TV documentary about 2 years ago. And I stumbled on this documentary on the internet, on YouTube. It was titled Anjola Aboderin, Master of Many Things. And that was really, really apt. And when I happened on this production on YouTube, I decided to make a comment, and this is what I wrote. Kunle Famarillo introduced me to Anjola in 1969, and we became friends instantly because I was also interested in both music and electronics. I was admitted to Ibadan Grammar School in 1973 for A-levels. And I had the honor of joining Anjola as chapel organist. Anjola introduced me to Uncle Tunji Oyelano, and I took over as keyboardist of the Benders when Anjola shifted to the saxophone. Anjola definitely defined our days as teens in Ibadan in those days. Anjola was a genius, now an avatar. And now, Segun Akinlolu has written this book, which I have been so greatly honored to review. The book, a wonderful piece of writing titled Magnus the Magician, consists of 14 chapters. 14 chapters of smooth text, written in very readable language, typical of the work of a lyricist of the ilk of Segun Akinlolu, Beautiful Nubia. I am not very given to reading, because I grew up dyslexic, so reading is not something I am very much at home with. But Anjola gave me this book about a week ago, and I thought when he left, immediately after he left me, I thought I should just leaf through the book and have an idea of what was there. And I read the book from beginning to the end. I could not drop the book. Now, having done that, and I came back and said, okay, let me now read the book for the review. And that is the depth of writing style that Akinlolu demonstrated in this book. Unfortunately, the book has no content page. A lack that is more than made up for by the really, really brilliant writing. But I hasten to share with you the cryptic titles of the various chapters. House in the Market, Amala Boy. Moving on, the man of May, and of course, the mother's love. Music on the Hill, Cadet 6 to Genesis, Jordan's Children, Little Bassist on his Stool, Distinguished Guitar Orchestra, Square Waves, Army Arrangement, This Place to Be, and Happily Ever Afters. These are the titles of the various chapters of the book. The first chapter, House in the Market, tells the story of the illustrious Aboderi family of Ibadan and their residents in Ojaba. Ojaba is the iconic market in Ibadan, which defines the Ibadan city. Anybody that knows a little or anything about the geography of Yoruba settlements will know that the market is the heart of the any town, any city, any settlement. The market is so important to Yoruba life to the extent that even some prefects of certain settlements are actually referred to as lodger. That means the settlement has grown to a point where it has a market, and the prefect of the settlement is referred to as a lodger, one whose settlement has a market. So this is the background to the Aboderi family, whose house was situated snap dab in the middle of Ojaba. And that was where our Magnus the magician, the Anjonu Anjola, grew up. Little wonder he grew up as an Anjonu. But this Anjonu was carefully curated. And I must acknowledge the provost of Kudeti Anglican Church, the first church in Ibadan, because Kudeti provided the environment to curtail this Anjonu and mold him into something worthwhile. Kudeti, the church at Kudeti, was a major feature of the family, of the Ajobredere family. And it was a routine that they performed every Sunday. They went to church, mixed with various other members of society, and the observant Anjola took in everything he saw in the environment. He'll come back from church and from visiting relatives, making cars of old Tate and Lyle sugar boxes with 6-inch nails, and using not Coca-Cola, Corolla bottle tops to make the wheels. These were the reality of Anjola. I do not intend to tell you the story in this book. All I want to do is to whet your appetite so that you can buy the book and actually enjoy it. So I will leave the House in the Market at that point. Very, very many other interesting things about this house in the market, where Ololu, Alapanshopa, Atidielege, Atipako, and all these illustrious Ibadan masqueraders will come and pay homage at the Aboderi family. The chapter, Amala Boy, tells the story of Anjola, who until and a little after he came to school age, had a habit of having amala for breakfast. He ate amala every morning for breakfast, and he had a special amala hawker who, when she comes around the house, will also make her usual noises, amala go no real. But when it got to the house, she will particularly ask for Anjola and give him his serving of amala, which Anjola just retrieves and goes to his corner, and the woman will have to trace Anjola's mother to retrieve the cost of the amala. And Anjola grew up he would just have his amala. But however they took care of, because of that was their business. And there's this corner to which he will retreat and will have amala gono for breakfast every day, until one day when his father said he has to go to school, and the amala woman had not come. Meanwhile, his dad had registered him in Mary Hill Convent School in Diabo, because his dad was working in the secretariat. So he wanted to put him in the school where he could just drop him and go on to the school. And the implication here is that the fervent civil servant that his father was needed to get to work on time. And to get to work on time, he needed to get out of the house on time, get Anjola to school, and drive the 5 minutes between Mary Hill and the secretariat. And here is Anjola waiting for the alamala. And just as Kulifa Muria had alluded to, Anjola's parents were very, very understanding parents, very accommodating, very much in key with nurturing their children, and it shows. So on the morning, Anjola still waiting for the amala woman. His father, waited, and finally the amala woman came. Anjola had his amala, and after the amala, he said he didn't want to go to school. Why? He said his brother had told him that all they do in school was teachers beating him, and he didn't want to go and get that kind of treatment. Somehow the father managed to convince him that school was where people of his age should be. I will also leave that chapter of Malaboy there and encourage you to read on. So Anjola had to move on, which is the title of the next chapter. And I'll treat the next two chapters together, moving on, and the Man of May. Any person here who had lived or had encountered the Yoruba Agbole will know that the Yoruba Agbole is a phenomenon. The Yoruba Agbole is a collection of close-knit dwelling quarters built together, because each time a child in the family became an adult and was in position to start his own family, the child does not move out of the house. The house is extended, and that is why it is an Agbo. It is a collection of dwelling places. When you have large families, the Agbole becomes really Agbo, because you can have it in a kind of a quadrangle, rectangular shape, where you will have an entrance or two into the space, large plain space in the middle, but then various dwelling quarters around. A Yoruba Agbole is a dwelling place where you have wives even if you are not polygamous. Because your brother's wives, your uncle's wives, your various male in the family who had their wives became your ìyàwó wa. If I say it in English, you will misunderstand me. Because the Yoruba word wife does not translate into English. The Yoruba word ìyàwó does not translate into English as wife. Because you can easily say ìyàwó wa, you cannot say our wife. It will be meaningless in English. So when you live in that kind of environment, welcome beautiful Nubia, I acknowledge you. When you live in that kind of environment, you have to deal with a lot of dynamics of human coexistence, popularly described as politics. And that's where you hear things like Ìjàlódé Toríntòwe. The song that you sang yesterday with no strings attached today becomes Awadumbawi because of something that has happened in between. So this was the environment. This is the environment in a typical Yoruba Agboolé. And Baba Emmanuel Ayodele Aboderin being an Alakowe of that time, because one of the distinguishing features that British colonialism put on Yoruba existence is that it created a dichotomy between an Alakowe and an Onisheowo. An Alakowe is somebody who scribbles things on paper for a living, whereas an Onisheowo is somebody who actually works for his living. The idea is that the Alakowe doesn't work, just sits on a chair and a table, dresses in a smart, even strange way, with tie around his neck, and sits there all the day, scribbling things, and they claim that is work. So Baba Emmanuel Ayodele Aboderin, having had the privilege of formal education, was a civil servant. So by every means, by every calculation of the Yoruba society that time was an Alakowe. Due to this Agboolé politics, Baba Aboderin decided to move out of Ojaba. He had built a house in Okeado and he had put it out for rent. But when he got the best, when he got his field of Agboolé politics, he decided to move to Okeado. So he waited for some of the tenants to vacate and moved with his family to Okeado, where Anjola started a totally new life. Having been weaned from his Amala breakfast, and of course this Amala seller does not ply her trade all the way to Okeado. So I think Anjola finally agreed that there's life beyond Amala. But the family did make efforts to reconnect with the family, for the larger family, because every Sunday they'll go to church in Kudeti as usual, and they'll come home with Angela's grandmother, with the family to Okeado. They'll have lunch in Okeado, they'll bond, speak, talk, enjoy one another's company, and then they will take her back to Ojaba in the evening every Sunday. So that was how Emmanuel Ayodele Aboderin managed his Alakowe traits. The next chapter talks of mother's love, which was a really sad chapter, because this is the chapter in which Anjola described his relationship with his mother, his ever-doting mother, very protective mother, who always stood out for him. A mother whose shop downstairs in Ojaba sold various things, but more importantly, Krola and Merinda and sweet onigi, half of which Anjola consumed So that's the relationship between Anjola and his mother. And then one day, Anjola plying his trade far away in Badagry. He was managing a concert. And in the evening, he started feeling a premonition to go to Ibadan and see his mother. He had asked one or two people to come with him so they could drive together. One of them who, after many hours later, he said he couldn't go. And at that point, everybody thought Anjola would abandon the trip. But Anjola, pushed by whatever was pushing him, drove all the way to Ibadan. And when he got home, he met his father, who told him things are getting better now, it's getting much better than before, and other people saying all sorts of things, but it was clear that they were doing the usual, they were trying to ease Anjola into the news of his mother's passing, until his sister spilled the beans, and which Anjola went to UCH that night to go and see the remains of his mother at UCH. Well, when you read that chapter, you really see that this apparently hard-nosed, always pushy, always prepared to please other people, always doing other people's bidding, Anjola does have a really, really soft core. Anyway, suffice to say, pleasant are the memories of the righteous. Carried 6 to Genesis. This is a story of the beginning of Anjola's foray into music. Who amongst us young boys, some girls here, who never beat tables and teams trying to make music? So Anjola had his fair share of beating tables, beating teams, beating plastic containers, or whatever could create some sound. But to have Victor Olaiya perform in the sitting room of your uncle is not a benefit. And that was what happened to Anjola on one of the holidays to Lagos to visit Mr. Omotosho, one of his uncles. There must have been some family celebration, and it was Victor Olaiya performing in the sitting room as the invited band. And of course, with a double bass, not just the bass guitar. So these are some of the realities that shaped this Anjola, called Anjola. And one of the things that really stood clearly that day to Anjola, because he managed to go behind the band and watch them from behind. And he noticed that the person playing the drum was playing with both hands and both feet. And couldn't understand how will anybody play drums with both hands and both feet. He was used to the drummers in Ojaba slinging their drum on their shoulders and at best using their knee to tension the usher. But now this is a man using both hands to play the drum, both feet, manipulating the bass drum, manipulating the hi-hat, and this really, really intrigued him. And he kept trying to find out where he could get the opportunity to try out his hands on such a drum. When in those, as he was growing older, his uncle, who was one of the organists at Kudeti, would take him to choir practice or some of the evening services. And once in a while, we'll encourage him to play one or two hymns. And one day he was there playing the first hymn, and he was happy with himself that he had played the first hymn. And he looked back, his uncle was gone. And he was now on his own He had to go and search for the next hymn and the next hymn, find the tune, and this was how he became a church musician thrown in at the deep end. Then, from primary school, Anjola started a band called the Cadet Six, a primary school band. By the time we got to primary 4, there was music theory lessons in Mary Hill Government School. And Anjola sat in those classes with frustration, hoping that they are going to teach him how to play Rolling Stones and Beatles. But here, the woman is teaching them FACE, all cows eat grass, all good boys deserve football. He says, what is all this? I want to play Beatles and Rolling Stone, not theory. But the opportunity to play came with the WNTV Junior TV Club and the program Youth Rendezvous. Anybody who grew up in Ibadan at that time will remember Youth Rendezvous. Da 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 da. Youth Rendezvous. So that was the call sign of Youth Rendezvous in those days. And Anjola, being part of the WNTV Junior TV Club, had the opportunity to perform at Youth Rendezvous. But of course, in this process, he had more than his fair share of broken guitar strings because he kept trying to tune the guitar until the strings broke. So these are the escapades of Anjola whilst he was growing up. Anybody that went to Ibadan Grammar School will know that apart from the many rivers around Molete, the likes of Ogundosa, Alamuyo, and such rivers, that the Ogunpa River that flows through Bode actually ends up, well, passes behind Ibadan Grammar School. And to Ibadan Grammar School students, that was Jordan. And that was where all sorts of things took place. Jordan is, well, a way of saying school outside school. And that's where many young grammar school students go to buy food, buy snacks, all sorts of things. And then those who wanted music too plotted it there. Whilst I was reading this, I remembered a particular teacher in a grammar school. We called him Sakuke. Much later on, I found out it was Sakul K. Or we called him Sakuke. Very, very hilarious man. He was one of those that usually come to raid students in Jordan. In Ibadan Grammar School, one of the students that became quite close to Anjola was a certain Paul Odiase. Mrs. Odiase was the music teacher in St. Anne's School. Happened to have been a co-teacher with my mother. My mother taught in St. Anne's School, and I knew the Odiase family very well. She was a music teacher, proficient pianist, was reputed to have been accomplished to the Sir Orlando Martins. But that distinguished the musician. So Paul, her son, of course there was Paul's brother too, Adam. They were little Paul and Adam Odiase. But Paul was a few years behind Anjola in Mary Hill. So when Anjola left Mary Hill and came to Ibadan Grammar School, first year or two, he was trying to find his way associate with some of the seniors who are playing music in the chapel, and with time he was inducted into the team of chapel organists. And Paul Odiase came in, and with Paul, Anjola bonded because Paul, being a musician's son, had quite some encouragement in music. Not that Anjola did not have any, Anjola also had quite admirable encouragement in music, because each time we went to the house, it was clear that Anjola's parents really wanted Anjola to be whoever he wanted to become. And that's why we have who we have here today, because his parents actually gave him wings to fly. So Paul and Anjola formed this friendship, which will take Anjola to St. Anne's after school in Van Grammar School to go and eat British food. And Paul will follow him to Kano to go and eat Amala. And they went all around with this cross-culture mix growing up in Ibadan of that time. As I said, there are 14 chapters in the book, but I will leave it there. Having spoken about some of these earlier chapters, but one chapter that I would wish to touch upon a little before I hand over the microphone is the chapter Together Afters. Anjola got married to a certain Denise. Denise was a very homely woman who deployed all her resources to make a homely man of Anjola. Denise was so homely, I suspect Denise wanted to build not only Anjola but Anjola's friends. Because on more than 2 or 3 occasions, Denise will talk to me about a certain lady who she thought fitted my bill. And that was the Denise I knew. Very, very homely. We used to go to Anjola, who somebody like me admired very much because his parents let him be in the back house from the time we were about 12, 13. He lived on his own in the back house, and we'll go to the place strewn with all sorts of guitar strings, all sorts of things. And Denise came onto the scene, and that place became a home. It was transformed from a junkyard into a home. And that was really, really admirable. Not too long, about a few years ago, I was in the UK to attend Uncle Tunji Yalano's 80th birthday. And as I sat with my wife, taking in the scene, there came one pretty little, not too little lady, and knelt down beside me and said, "Good evening, sir." And I looked at her and said, "You know me?" She said, "I know you, sir. You are my daddy's friend." And I said, "What? Shade? Anjola's daughter?" She said, "Yes." And she gave me a hug. Shade is another beautiful soul. Anjola has been blessed, has been really, really blessed. Shade is such a daughter that any parent should pray to her. She's a wonderful soul. And thank you. And she's in music too, Shady Blues. And she's a really significant singer after the mold of Anjola. Like I said, I don't intend to tell you all the stories in the book. I just want to whet your appetite. I want to lay the background so that when you read the book, you will be able to relate to some of the things we have shared here today. Interestingly, I started my life in Ibadan in Kudeti because my father was the principal of Emmanuel College, and Emmanuel College was then situated in Kudeti. And I, on some occasions, will find myself in the church in the evening, invited by some friends to take part. And that gave me an insight into the kind of background Anjola grew in. But later on, Emmanuel College moved here close to the university, and it was of utmost importance for me regularly to travel all the way to Okeado to go and get a feel of the real life as against the Omalako way life we were living here. And it was in Anjola's house that I first saw the Maplins catalog, which was the catalog that supplied all the electronic parts that we young people knew about then. It was Anjola that emboldened me that I could venture to ask my father for a motorcycle at 16. And strangely enough, my father obliged. So I too started riding motorbike like Anjola. But I didn't grow as far as owning mini mokes. At a point, Anjola must have bought off every mini moke that remained in this Ibadan. And Anjola's family house has a really big yard. And Anjola took over the whole of the yard with his disused Fafista Fast 4 organs, mini mokes, disused motorbikes, all sorts of things. And I'm sure I'm saying these people here, Family or Tokumbawo Shika, those who were around Anjola in those days will remember all these Anjola's junks. And Kule Family talk about the accident, which was such a low point for all of us who are Anjola's friends. The family was traveling to Lagos, and there was some reckless driving by some army truck driver, which hit the car, threw the car into the bush, causing the loss of a soul, one of Anjola's cousins, and with multiple injuries on Anjola, and even Anjola's elder sister, a sister who we all looked up to, who incidentally, when I moved to work in OGTV and OGBC in Abeokuta, that Anjola's sister had married into Abeokuta and was working at the licensing office. And each time I went there to renew my license, she would spot me from far. And that was the kind of relationship we had with Anjola. So today, we celebrate Anjola, we celebrate his life, we celebrate his Anjonu life, and we pray that even as he continues to advance in age, he will continue to advance in the blessings of God. Suffice for me now to say that this book, Magnus the Magician, is dedicated to the honor of Anjola's father and mother, to his children, Shade, Lola, Jide, Dare, Shola, Ayo, Agola, and Omotonde. What a houseful. And grandchildren, Malik, Temi, Anaya, Tani, Neila, Nathan, Toby, Noel James, King, Khalil, Cairo, Aria, and Isaac. And he didn't leave us out. For everyone who loves music and its twin, electronics. Thank you very much.